The mysterious fate of the MV Darbisher. The vanishing of the MV Darbisher remains one of the most baffling maritime losses. Constructed in 1976, this massive British bulk carrier was designed to haul enormous loads of coal and iron ore across international waters. Stretching 820 feet in length and weighing more than 91,000 tons, it ranked among the giants of its class when it embarked on what would tragically be its last mission. On September 9, 1980, the Darbisher sank amid a violent Pacific typhoon, claiming the lives of all 44 crewmen. The disaster stands as one of Britain's deadliest shipping tragedies, cloaked in mystery and unanswered questions. The Darbisher had left Japan in early September, bound for Canada with a heavy cargo of iron ore. Weather forecasts warned of an approaching typhoon, but the captain trusted in the ship's strength to ride out the storm. As the vessel pushed deeper into the Pacific, the cyclone intensified, eventually engulfing the Darbisher in its full fury. Its final radio call on September 9th reported worsening seas, but revealed no sign of imminent catastrophe. When the ship failed to arrive, rescue operations began, yet by then the storm had moved on. No trace was found immediately, until weeks later when fragments of wreckage and human remains appeared on distant island shores. The ship itself had vanished beneath the ocean's surface, leaving families desperate for explanations. At first, investigators suspected the ship had been torn apart by massive waves. Testimonies from sailors on nearby vessels described hearing loud cracking and metallic banging noises on the Darbisher's radio frequencies just before its last message. These disturbing sounds suggested the ship was under immense strain, perhaps suffering equipment breakdowns as it fought the typhoon. Later analysis by marine specialists indicated that extreme pressure on the hull and hatch covers could have triggered catastrophic failure, offering the first real clues that more than weather alone doomed the vessel. Attention then shifted to the way the ship had been loaded. Heavy iron ore, if not balanced correctly, could destabilize a bulk carrier. Reports hinted that the Darbisher may have carried an excessive load, or that the cargo was poorly secured. Such imbalances would have increased the risk of capsizing or flooding when confronted with violent seas. Combined with possible design flaws, these factors pointed to a complex tragedy involving both human error and natural forces. Some engineers argued that weaknesses in the Darbisher's hull left it particularly exposed to massive swells and hurricane-force winds. Yet the ship had passed all inspections and was deemed seaworthy, a contradiction that confused investigators and fed speculation about deeper causes. The hunt for the wreck did not begin in earnest until the late 1990s, nearly 20 years later, when deep-sea exploration technology finally allowed a search. The remains were eventually discovered 12,000 feet below the Pacific surface, marking a breakthrough in understanding what had happened. Inspection of the wreck revealed devastating damage at the bow, including a huge rupture where seawater could have rushed in uncontrollably. Experts concluded that waves likely smashed open the front of the vessel, flooding compartments so quickly that the Darbisher capsized before the crew had any chance to react. Even with these discoveries, doubts persisted. Some experts pointed to flaws in the hatch covers, the barriers shielding cargo holds from water. Tests indicated that under extreme stress, these covers might collapse, letting seawater pour into the holds. The builders of the Darbisher denied design faults, yet the possibility ignited broader concern for the safety of similar bulk carriers. The loss of the Darbisher underscored the immense hazards facing cargo ships when weighed down with heavy loads in violent seas. It led to tighter regulations on shipbuilding standards and cargo security, as well as improved forecasting and navigation measures to better prepare for typhoons. Sailors who survived the same storm described monstrous 80-foot waves and winds fierce enough to wreck decks and equipment, conditions capable of overpowering even the strongest ships. The Darbisher's seasoned crew fought valiantly but faced hopeless odds. The absence of any survivors only deepened the tragedy and mystery. For years, families of the dead pressed for the ship's sinking to be recognized as more than just a natural disaster, arguing structural failure played a role. Their efforts drew public attention to bulk carrier safety and drove further inquiry. Today, memorials honor the 44 men who perished, ensuring their sacrifice is not forgotten. The loss of the MV Darbisher remains one of the most haunting sea tragedies of the late 20th century. The deadly mix of ferocious weather and potential engineering flaws left the ship defenseless against the storm. Despite modern advancements, the ocean still guards many of its secrets, and the full truth of that night remains beyond reach. The Darbisher's story endures as a solemn reminder of the ocean's overwhelming power and the fragility of those who sail its waters. The silence that followed its disappearance lingers in maritime history, urging vigilance, humility, and respect for the sea's unpredictable might. The enigmatic doom of the Urang Medan's last SOS. In June of 1947, during the early morning hours, several vessels traveling through the crowded shipping lanes of the Strait of Malacca intercepted a strange and alarming radio call. The transmission was fragmented and filled with desperate pleas for help, followed abruptly by an eerie silence. This chilling message came from the Dutch cargo ship Urang Medan, a vessel that would soon become infamous as one of the greatest ghost ship mysteries of all time. What befell its crew and what triggered the haunting SOS remain unanswered questions to this very day. When responding ships tracked the signals, they discovered the Urang Medan drifting lifelessly at sea. Boarding teams who climbed aboard were met with a terrifying sight. The entire crew lay dead across the decks and cabins, their faces frozen in sheer terror. No signs of physical wounds, no blood, no battle scars explained their deaths. Strangely, the freighter itself bore no marks of attack or serious damage. The communication equipment still functioned, yet no further calls ever followed the original desperate message. Officers, crewmen, and even the captain were found exactly where duty had placed them, their bodies stiff, as if an unseen force had claimed them all in the same instant. Closer inspection revealed an even stranger detail. Many of the sailors seemed to have perished simultaneously, showing no evidence of resistance or attempts to escape. The absence of external injuries suggested an internal or environmental cause, perhaps a poisonous substance. The terrifying stillness on board contrasted sharply with the frantic words of the earlier transmission. Some theorized that toxic fumes or gas had leaked and suffocated the crew, but since no scientific samples were taken before the ship was lost, the possibility could never be proven. Inside the captain's quarters, investigators found the vessel's logbook. Its final pages contained frantic notes describing unbearable heat on the lower levels and a sickening odor like burning sulfur creeping through the corridors. The final entry ended abruptly, scribbled in a panic scrawl. All hands abandoned ship. Something is wrong. God help us. These words remain among the only first-hand clues to the crew's last moments. Oddly, earlier pages of the log contain sketches of jagged patterns and waves, interpreted by some as sea ice or approaching storms, though their true meaning remains a mystery. Those who boarded the vessel reported an oppressive atmosphere hanging over the ship. Some rescuers felt sudden dizziness, headaches, or nausea while on board, symptoms that vanished the moment they returned to their own ships. Others outright refused to set foot on the freighter, claiming they sensed an overwhelming dread, whether psychological or the result of unseen toxins. One of the most haunting discoveries was the radio operator. His body was slumped over the transmitter, microphone still in hand, suggesting he continued sending distress calls until the very end. Yet no further messages were ever received. The silence that followed his desperate efforts remains one of the most chilling aspects of the tale, as though the ship had been swallowed whole by some unseen presence. Witnesses described the lifeless sailor's eyes wide open, mouths frozen in horror, as though they had faced something unspeakable in their final seconds. Examiners struggled to find rational explanations. Poison, violence, or mechanical failure all seemed unlikely due to the lack of evidence. Rumors began to circulate that the ship had been secretly carrying dangerous cargo. Whispers of unlisted chemicals or toxic compound arose, possibly leaking and creating a deadly vapor. Others speculated about nerve agents or poisonous fumes. Nothing was ever confirmed, however, as the ship's official manifest offered no answers. Unverified port records from Singapore hinted that days before its voyage, the Urang Medan may have received an unregistered nighttime delivery of mysterious cargo. Only a handful of dock workers claimed to have seen it, and they later refused to speak further. To add to the ghostly aura, rescuers described a strange, unnatural mist encircling the ship when it was first spotted adrift. As attempts were made to tow the freighter to port, disaster struck again. A fire suddenly erupted in the cargo hold, spreading with shocking speed. Flames consumed the ship until it violently exploded, sinking into the depths and taking with it every shred of evidence that could have solved the puzzle. With its destruction, the truth about the crew's fate was swallowed forever by the ocean. Some skeptics suggested that the entire incident may have been a hoax or a case of mistaken identity. Yet the distress signal was received by multiple vessels, and the detailed reports of the boarding parties make this explanation unlikely. The story endured, passed on by sailors and historians as a chilling reminder of the unknown perils that haunt the seas. Over the years, the tragedy of the Urang Medan has inspired books, films, and investigations. Yet none have been able to explain with certainty what killed the crew. The lack of physical evidence, combined with the ship's fiery destruction, ensures that the mystery remains unresolved. Ultimately, the Urang Medan stands as one of the most unsettling legends in maritime history. Its crew's final cries for help, the terrifying expressions on their faces, and the ship's sudden obliteration have left behind a story that chills even seasoned sailors. The unanswered questions, what cargo it carried, what invisible force claimed its crew, and why their deaths were so sudden, continue to echo across time. The ghost ship's last call remains one of the sea's most haunting enigmas, a grim reminder of both the fragility of human life and the unfathomable mysteries of the ocean.